Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Tim, and I'm delighted to have this live today to talk about ways to scale your online teaching. And if you are here watching live, you'll see a chat in the right-hand side. Don't be shy, say hello, and would love to welcome you. Thank you, Mary, for being the first one here. Excited for the live. Yes, me as well. And I hope everyone's doing well. I had 2 hours of teaching today and just recently got back from a 3-week trip to Malaysia. So I'm back now in Bangkok and had a little scheduling mix up. That's why we're a little late, an hour difference to when I normally do the lives. But anyhow, good to see those that are here. Hi, Rebecca. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Kishla. Good to see you always on the live. Thanks so much for being here. And if you are watching the replay of the live, it will be up on my channel. You'll be able to ask any questions that you have or comment in the comment section below the video. So big welcome to everyone. Thanks for being here. We're going to talk about ways to scale your business. And I actually was following Elena over the last maybe year or so. And when she reached out to me, I was really excited to chat with her. And I think that the content that we're going to talk about today is going to be really interesting for independent online teachers who might be teaching one-on-one classes, but looking for ways to scale their business. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I used to work with companies and now help teachers to start their own independent teaching business, primarily with Chinese students. And a lot of teachers do ask me about, what are some ways, some methods to maybe move out of that one-on-one model of trading time for money, essentially, to be able to scale, maybe work a little bit less, or be able to work on terms that you're more comfortable with and in a format that you're more comfortable with. And so we're going to get into that. So I want to welcome Elena to the show. Hi, Elena.
Hey, Tim. Hey, welcome.
Thanks so much for being here.
And hey, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. And all across the world, it's morning time for me. I'm in New Orleans, United States, but originally am from Ukraine. So
cool. So you're originally from Ukraine and you're living in New Orleans. So it's what time of the morning now?
It is 10 in the morning.
10 in the morning. Okay. So we're 12 hours 12 hours apart. Yeah, we have lots of people that do watch from different parts of the world, and sometimes the show isn't at a great time for everybody. So if you're watching the replay, feel free to look at the links below. I'm going to put all of Elena's information. But first, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into online teaching.
Yes, just a quick story of I started out as an ESL teacher at a college, and I was mainly working with future translators or teachers and focusing mainly on pronunciation and conversation. And after a few years, the school shut down, and by then, I had already been doing some tutoring on the side. A lot of teachers used to do that in Ukraine. They are. They tend to do this. So I was no exception, and I got to a point where I was really exhausted. I was just tired working, and it really impacted my health. And so when things shut down, it was kind of providential time where I thought, well, if I go find a job, then I'm going back into this bind of, working from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I've got all these students that I'm tutoring. How about I'm just going to teach them on the side. And initially I was teaching them at home. But as I moved to the United States, then I just started trying things out on Skype. And prior to that, even what gave me, I guess, inspiration for that was a friend that I met on social media that I hadn't seen in a long time. And she was in another town from the school that we went to. And she said, I'm trying to learn English, but it's so difficult. Can you help me maybe? And
Uh-huh.
so, yes, and I couldn't travel every weekend, so I said, "Well, let's try out Skype," and that was back in 2008.
Okay, I was going to ask you what year that was.
Yes, it was
2008. Okay.
2008, yes, and I thought, "Well, that's not too difficult, to do." So I was kind of ready for when the next, well, in the next several months when the school shut down, I had a plan.
Yeah.
I kind of fell into online teaching, I think, as many
Okay.
people do. If you do, please let us know in the comments. But you kind of fall into it because something happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so after that, I was teaching, and then I moved to the US. I got married, moved to the US, New Orleans, and most of my clients at the time were from Russia and Ukraine because that's where I had initially been. And I got busy really quickly through word of mouth, and after a while, I was wondering, well, I really can't take any more people, and I mean, I can change my pricing incrementally,
Yeah.
but it's not like I can completely take a day off.
Right.
And if I do take a day off, then I'm going to lose a lot. And so I was started experimenting with online class and YouTube channel and podcasting and whatnot. And and I realized that it was a lot of work, but because I did
Mm.
not know much about marketing, none of the online courses were selling to anybody other than my clients. And whoever my clients brought to me wanted to do one-to-one classes. They did not want to opt for
Different formats.
courses, right, or
Yeah.
courses or whatever. And so I was kind of stuck in a way,
Mm.
until a few years later when I actually had almost had no choice but to try out different things. And yeah, that was kind of my second maybe stage of business that we can dive into, but that's the beginning, how I started back in 2008.
Okay. And I think we talked about were you with any of the companies that I've talked about before? Did you dabble in anything, or were you
I did
always on
dabble.
your own?
I did dabble a little bit. What I found really frustrating, was I would spend a lot of time, and back in the day when I was only trying, there was a lot of paperwork that was involved, at least in some of the companies that I was working at.
Okay.
And I felt like it was just not worth my time. Like, I would spend, some time putting together my packet, convincing people that I am indeed experienced, and then they would take about 2 weeks for them to write back to me to say. And so I thought, well, instead of waiting, I could do something on my own. And by
Yeah.
then I already had that foundation, which was, I guess, something that really helped and made me feel confident because I had brought my tutoring clients from Ukraine to the online world, and it wasn't that big of a transition. And they told their friends, and they went and talked to at their workplaces, and so that's how I was able to get
Cool.
more people. Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of the teachers that I tend to work with is they're at the point maybe of getting those foundations set up. And for many, it can be quite scary to either take, students from where they worked at a previous company, or if they were, in-person students.
Right.
As you say, it wasn't a huge transition, but it can feel a little bit daunting
Mm,
in the beginning, right? So,
mm.
once you get that foundation laid, I think that's when maybe you can start to get
Yeah.
creative and think of other ways to scale.
Yes.
So cool. So that you've been in this game for a while. When I had my very first student, I also used Skype. He was in China, and it was 2010. But
Mm,
I had a few other students over the years, but I was working in like really busy, kind of high powered international schools that I was just quite happy to have a little bit of income on the side. So I was never really looking at making this either a full time thing or any bigger than it was.
yeah.
And then I moved into working with companies and et cetera, and now private teaching. So I'd love to know in the chat if anyone, for those that are watching, thank you for clicking the like button. If you're on Facebook, I saw that. Appreciate that so much. Helps the video. If you're on YouTube, please click the like button as well and say hello. We've got Mick, here and Facebook user, you can authorize Facebook to show your name. But let me know in the chat. Are you working with companies, or are you independent teaching, or have you kind of ventured into other things? We'd love to see that. Elena, I wanted to ask you about, why did you move away from that one-on-one teaching model? Was it to just that model wasn't something that you resonated with anymore? You kind of wanted to try the thing, scale your income. What were sort of the reasons for it?
I think there were multiple reasons. First of all, just physically, I was really exhausted, and there were times when I felt like I hated teaching.
Yeah,
And
as teachers, we hate to say that, right? But
right. And I think when I said that to myself, I thought, wow, this is so, like, this is unfair to my clients, right? People that are paying me money and are learning language, it is unfair to them if I come in and I am not giving my 100%. And by then I had not been able to give my 100%. And so I had that conflict inside. That was one of the reasons. The second reason is I had a child, and then I had my second child. And so I realized that I would not be able to go at the same pace that I was going prior. So that was a concern of mine, to say, okay, I do not, this is all good, but I do not see myself doing that. This is just not realistic as the kids start growing and I will take them to school, and from school, it's either I will constantly be like a nervous wreck trying to manage stuff, and this anxiety would build up. So that was not just good for me. And I did not want to, experience that and live with that. So these are some of the things, but still, I guess one of the main factors that really pushed me to trying something new was in 2014, when the war in Ukraine started in the East, and that it really affected my income, my clients, the kinds of lessons I had. If I had clients from Ukraine, it was very difficult to be in the same, like you're trying to teach somebody. I mean, eventually people really welcomed a distraction of learning the language, but at the same time, the inflation hit really hard, and I could not charge less than I was charging. I was still like charging minimally. And so that really pushed me to say, okay, I can no longer continue like this, and I need to do something different. That's when I switched to a global audience, and that's when I switched to niching, and I became very serious about who I want to help. And I created my first online course, and I started blogging, creating content, and connecting with people. And I put together my first ebook for online teachers within that year. And I sold it to 30 people that I had no idea who they were. And I think at that point, I was like, wow, this is really powerful. How can I do more of that? And I realized that in order for me to do that, I had to really be like, I could no longer, in my journey anyway, I had to take like 6 months where I could just focus on content creation and all that. I could not like flirt with one-to-one, and just try with a few clients to switch them to a different format where I would actually gain, still retaining the income that I had.
Cool. Wow. Great. We've got Kishla here who says, teaching with companies at the moment, trying to get more independent students and doing group classes. Cool. Tom says, I'm taking a break from teaching at the moment. We'll return in 2023. Tasha from Louisiana.
Hello,
Cool.
from Louisiana.
Yes, another one.
Where in Louisiana are you from? I'm curious.
She's virtual and in person since 2019. May says took a break as well from Palfish last year. So Palfish is one of these companies. I don't know if you've heard of them before.
Yes, I do. I have heard, yes.
Bit of a mess. Would like to come back to teaching. The exhaustion is real. Yeah. I mean, burnout is a real thing. And, you don't, we don't want to get to a place of
Yeah.
not bringing our best to our classes.
Mhm.
And it sounds like you were getting to that point
Yeah.
and found some other ways. I'd love to hear. I know you work with teachers, and I know that you coach and you have
Mhm.
resources, which I've got one link below there for folks if you'd like to just get something for free from Elena and see what she offers. But what are some other formats that you've helped clients sort of dive into? Because I think, someone mentioned group classes. So like maybe just kind of open our worlds up to some possibilities,
Mm,
if you
mhm.
can, to
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is out there and what other teachers are doing
Yes.
in terms of moving away from one-to-one.
So, I will just give a quick story prior to like
Sure.
what I mean, I did tell you what really pushed me was I pretty much lost all of my business and I could not revive, right? In
Hmm.
2014, I could no longer, after, the events at the beginning of the year, by the end of the year, I could no longer revive that which I had before. So, my only way forward was to come up with something completely different.
Hmm.
And so for me, it looked like I'm going to use English in my marketing, no more Russian.
Hmm.
I am going to switch from, one social media to another, and I'm going to write within a specific niche. And because it was really hard, and it is always usually hard in the beginning to niche down, I did two things. I was doing accent training, um, and I was doing online teacher training. So I was helping online teachers initially to kind of answering their questions about the business. So I had those
Yeah.
two things going on at the same time. And so I figured that for my students, to help my students and clients with their English, my priorities were speaking competence, fluency, and pronunciation.
Okay.
And I had
So
several
just say that
clients.
again. Speaking
Speaking
fluency.
yes, speaking competence or fluency
Ah,
and
yeah. Okay.
pronunciation, yes.
Cool. That's a great niche. Yeah. So I have people always asking, like, how do I niche
Right.
down and what are
Yes.
profitable niches and stuff. So
Yes.
I agree with you. That's great. Okay.
And then,
So then,
it's also the niching process is really a lot more involving. And if you're interested, like on my website, elenamotonomo.com, there's a tab called courses, and there's a workshop there, free workshop. It's called Dare to
cool.
Be Different. And so that's about niching. So, but, for me, I chose accent training because I had done that before. That was where my expertise was. And I actually enjoyed doing it. And speaking competence and fluency was something that I picked up because that was what most of my clients prior to that had come to me for. And it seemed like every single person that I'd worked with, that's all they wanted. They didn't care about, other aspects. They just wanted to be able to speak. So that's how I based my that was pretty intuitive over time and developed.
So I'm
But
just gonna
mhm,
like
yeah,
say for those in the chat, like listen to what students are
right,
coming to you for, right? I mean,
right.
we might have our own idea of what we think they need, but
Yeah.
actually when we listen to what they really need and why they're coming to us. So,
Yeah.
if you're even if you're teaching, which a lot of those watching are teaching Chinese children, asking the parents what are the reasons for booking classes, like what, it
Mm,
might be that they want to get into a good high school, or you can start to develop a niche around that
mhm.
lines up with your expertise. Anyway, sorry, just wanted to throw
Yeah,
that in there. That
so
was good.
and I see, quite a few people are trying to work independently, or they're trying to maybe scale it. So, so that's a good place. So that's where I
Yeah.
was. Like I had a client, in particular when I switched to niching, and I was working on preparing him for speaking for IELTS for his test.
Okay.
And he really struggled with that area. He was really good with others, and he didn't need help with anything, but he really struggled with speaking.
Mm.
And I was struggling with him because I would give him homework and he would not work. consistently. So he would use our weekly lessons to come in and to kind of talk for, 30, 40 minutes, but not really do anything in between, which really defeated the whole purpose. And
Yeah.
so I told him, how about we try 1 month where we're not going to meet every week, but instead, every week I'm going to send you a voice message in a voice chat. And it
Mm.
will have a prompt, just like you would receive in your IELTS test. You'll get a prompt, and you will need to practice that prompt and speak on that for like 2 minutes. And so now that and I said, we will only do it for 1 month. And if you don't like it, I'll give you the money back, but you will pay me the same amount that you would pay for one-to-one classes. So he
Yeah.
agreed. That was very important, to find a person who was like risky enough to. And
Yeah.
he also heard me, because I did not tell him, hey, let's try something that, I'm not sure if it's going to work for you, but
Yeah.
he actually really, really heard me. And he felt like I really wanted to help him with his
Yeah.
particular situation. So we switched. And what started happening is, because we didn't have one-to-one classes and he wouldn't show up just for a certain time, he would practice every day. And I told him this is unlimited. Well, obviously Monday through Friday. And I would not respond right away. So it was asynchronous. So he would send me
Yeah.
this 2-minute note, and then I would listen to it. And I had my system of reviewing it where I would just focus on three things. So I would say, vocabulary wise, this is one of the things that you would want to work on. Then this isn't, this is another thing, or pay attention to your past tenses. And then his point was then to listen to my feedback and re-record himself with my suggestions, using my
Okay.
suggestions as a guide. So he would do that. And then I would, give him thumbs up, and then I would give him another prompt. So the whole week he would do that, but every day he would probably maybe work for 10, 15 minutes. And me, I would respond for like a couple of minutes
Yeah.
a day. And I noticed myself that his ability and his confidence was growing, because
Cool.
he kept this repetition going. So
Yeah.
my main issue was, how do I get him to do the work? And he was doing the work. And then, for example, a podcast, I would give him, instead of a prompt, I also would give him like maybe a 5-minute podcast. And I would tell him, can you listen to it and tell me what you understood? And he would listen. And then he would tell me, okay, I understood this, and that's what I did not understand. And so I would listen to what he did not understand, and I would answer those questions, and then I would encourage him to go back and listen to it. So he listened to the podcast again. He's like, oh, yeah, I can't believe that the second time I heard it, I could understand so much more. How did that
Mm.
happen? So instead of what he used to do, like he would get into a class and he would just listen to a podcast 10 minutes before a class. All teachers know how that happens. And
Sure.
so, of course, he would never be like focused enough. But here, he did not have the distraction of classes. And it was all, he assumed responsibility for his progress and his success.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the month, I brought him in for a consultation. It was a 20-minute consultation. And it wasn't a lesson. All I asked him is like, how did you feel throughout the month? How do you feel about it? And he was amazed at the results that he got. He says, not only am I more confident speaking, but I'm also more confident listening, because I had to listen to your feedback. And then when I gave him a podcast to listen to, he would listen to it multiple times. So
Mm.
then I said, so do we go back to one-to-one classes? Inside, I was like, please say no. And he says,
Yeah.
no, let's. And it was surprising, because we had been working on his speaking for several months, and I felt like we were just not moving forward. And in just a month of this kind of um, format, his listening and his speaking skills completely changed. I mean, you could tell that he was a lot more confident.
So cool. And I sort of, just to sort of recap
Hmm.
your, like, because I think what many might be thinking and what I'm
Hmm.
thinking is, okay, how do you how do you do that? How do you move
Mhm,
a student in that
mhm,
direction? And you picked one student,
mhm.
you kind of had a hybrid synchronous and
Right,
asynchronous format. You know, introduced it slowly. You kind of like had a consultation at the end and
right.
had him voice his what he believes his progress was, which is really good. And it was successful. So
Yes.
cool.
And
Yeah.
it's I think another key thing is to tell people when you're trying to that's one question that I'm also anticipating that people will be asking, well, how do I convince? It's not always it doesn't always work if you come in and say, okay, from now on, I'm going to work like this. So it
Yeah.
immediately freaks people out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what I did was like with a very specific person, I said, how about we just do that for 1 month? And if you do not like it, we can go back.
Yeah.
And and then you decide if you want to go back after this. So because I did not have a backup plan, but I kind of felt like, I hope you will like it so that we can just continue like that. And that gave me the confidence then the new clients would come in and I would say, you know what, I'm not doing one-to-one. I'm doing what I call a program. So
Yeah.
I would switch from one-to-one classes to what I call a program, which is primarily asynchronous. You get somebody's asking about prompts. You do not do one prompt a day. I do about 2 or 3 a week. And usually my default number is 2 because the idea is not how many prompts we can give, but how well they work with one prompt. So as
Right.
long as they take one prompt and really work on it and listen to our feedback and then rework it and then do it again, that's where the magic happens. And
Yeah.
we all know as teachers, that's kind of repetition is what really is crucial.
Yeah. It was Mary's asking,
Mhm.
it was fully okay, commenting, fully
Mhm.
customized. Is it a template you can use for everyone?
Yes, actually, you can, for example, the clients that I work with, the teachers, what we do is that's where niching is really important. So if your niche and my niche was speaking, now this particular student was an IELTS student, so my prompts were kind of guided by the IELTS suggested topics for IELTS exam,
Yeah.
and that was probably an exception. But for the most part, most of my students were or clients were just from different areas, but their main focus was I just need to learn to speak informally and to be able to find the right words at the right time and not have to think a lot. And that's
Yeah.
where confidence comes in. And that's where I just create most of the clients that I do work with teachers now who run speaking programs that it stems from their niche. What is their niche? So if their niche, I'm working with people for conversational English or Spanish or Italian, that's one thing. If they say, well, I am helping people to do presentations, that's a little different. These are different prompts. So then your prompts will be a different structure, maybe problems that you need to solve. For example, you come into a meeting and you only have so many minutes to present your case. How do you do, for example, and then that's how
Mhm.
you outline that. But if you're working with the same niche, that's what is going to happen, that eventually all of your prompts will be kind of streamlined and it will
Okay.
be within the same kind of, and then it won't be as difficult to come up with prompts because you are working in the same niche.
Gotcha. Um, oh, I just see Tasha wrote she's from the bottom of the boot on the
Mm,
coastline, 80 miles southwest of New
okay.
Orleans.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Whenever you're in New
um,
Orleans, Tasha, please let me know.
there you go. So, what are some other, a lot of teachers are
Oh,
teaching children and maybe doing group classes. I mean, that's a way to
yeah.
also to scale a little bit and provide opportunities for maybe students that aren't able to afford your rate and things like that.
Yeah.
What about, have you seen or worked with teachers that are creating maybe courses for students and selling those in the sort of language teaching
Yes.
niche?
So I would recommend why I recommend starting with programs and selling programs. Like this
Explain what
format.
you mean by
Well,
a program
yes, by
again, just for
program,
the
it's an asynchronous format where your
asynchronous.
students, right,
Yeah.
asynchronous program where your students sign up to get a, specific results within 4 weeks. They're going to be more confident when presenting or speaking on a particular subject. And all they get from you really is weekly prompts. You do not meet with them until maybe the end of the month. And again, like I was saying, it's either a consultation or maybe it's a group lesson where you bring everybody together. Sometimes people do, depending on your context, the Q&A, pre-recorded Q&A. So somebody asks you questions and so forth. So why it's important? Because a program is easy because you're only marketing, quote unquote, to people that you've already worked with. So they already paid you, and you don't really need to sort of pitch them or convince them to pay you money. They've already paid money to you. So it's your challenge at that point is to convince them that a synchronous program is actually better for them.
Hmm.
And if you are an experienced teacher, you know why it would be better, for
And
all
you
the
can probably
reasons that
pick
I
out that
mentioned.
one or two students to
Right,
start with,
exactly.
like,
Yes. And so that gives you the confidence then to go out and market your program to a wider audience, or before you even market it to a wider audience, maybe to write to more students, and or to when people come to you and they say, oh, I would like to work with you, instead of giving them lessons, you say, well, I have this other format that you might want to try. It's a program and you can try it. And if you don't like it, then we can switch to one-to-one. The cool thing about a program too is factually people are paying you the same amount that they would for one-to-one classes, right? But you are not working as much as you would. And it's definitely not synchronous where you see the person or you have to be in front of the screen. So that frees up a lot of your time and gives you an opportunity then to focus on how you market and build your online presence, either on YouTube or with podcasts or maybe social media, or maybe you blog or do your newsletter. So it frees up that time because you don't really have that. And the second bonus is that when people say, okay, this program is not for me, can we do one-to-one? That is your opportunity to raise your prices. So let's say you were charging, for example, um, $40 an hour. And so for 4 lessons, it was 160. Now you're charging 160 for a program. And the
hmm.
person says, well, I don't really want a program. Can I do one-to-one? And you tell
Hmm.
them, well, the program is 160. You can't charge the same amount for one-to-one. It has to be more because we're
Yeah.
talking about price anchoring here. So people need to see the difference that, okay, so when they work one-to-one with you, then you can, go to 250. And so people no longer look at it as, oh, is that per hour? How much is that per hour? Because they compare, okay, asynchronous is when I do the voice messages is 160, but this one is 260, for example. They don't tend to go and like calculate, okay, how much is that per hour if you are
Hmm.
offering people a program by default. And so that's one of the ways. And so once you've been running this program for a while, what you can do as an offshoot of that is you can create workbooks. So you will probably have lots of materials and trackers. Teachers ask me, so I would like to create a product. I don't know which product, and it takes me so long, a book. Create a workbook. So somebody comes to you and they want to be your client, and you tell them, you know what, I don't really have the space, but I have this workbook for you where you can just practice on your own for a month. And then you let me know whether you like this or not. And then you can add to workbook, you can add audios. So even for example, if you want to create like a program like that, so you have a speaking program and then you switch to you sell. And along, every week you can pre-record those prompts. And so people can listen to you talk about that prompt. And then they're like, oh, okay, this is how I can shape my prompt.
Are
So
they buying the workbook?
yeah, they could
Yeah.
buy a workbook. So for example, people come to you and they're like, "Well, I want to work," and then either you don't have spots or maybe it's too expensive for you to work one-to-one. Maybe they're not ready to pay you 160 a month. Then you tell them, "Well, I have a workbook for $50.
Mm.
If you like it, if you work on your own, you like it, then you can continue." So this is a way that people can
This is
continue.
interesting. Yeah.
Right, working, and it's very, very easy to put together, especially, I mean, for us teachers, we have quite a bit of materials. So that's another way. Those people that work with students or like kids,
Yeah.
I had a client that really enjoyed writing. And so I encouraged her to write her own stories. And you can do that in different ways. You can, for example, have your own podcast where you can actually record those stories and build the audience of people who enjoy listening to those stories. That is one way. What she ended up doing was writing a book with children's stories. And
Right.
so then she built a curriculum around those stories, reading curriculum and writing curriculum. She has 3 books, and I think she's been working for 2 years with all those books. She's promoting, she's speaking, she's creating add-ons. She's doing that on
This is a
paper.
teacher.
Yes, she's a teacher. And now because she's a teacher and a writer, she gets invited to a number of events where she talks about how she teaches through her books, and she's been selling her books to teachers as well that teach to kids. It's an incredible thing where teachers can like switch across that and teach in a different way. And then you have all the materials ready. And if people are not ready to work with you in a group, for example, or in a program, they can always buy you a book.
Yeah.
So, and then you can create a course. So creating a course, then if you have run your program for a while, then you can just organize it in a different way and put all the worksheets. If you had a workbook, you can parse the workbook into worksheets and create audio, because audio seems to be a bit more in demand currently. I see a lot of teachers using and coaches using audio format
Mm.
on top of video format or as an option for people. So you can create it doesn't mean that you have to like be in front of a camera. You can just record yourself, and that will be even a better for speaking practice because people will have to rely more on
That's interesting that
the
you found audio is more in demand, because that's the daunting part of
Mhm.
creating a
Yes.
course
Yeah.
is the video. I've
Yeah,
got
you're
some
like,
courses.
"Oh, the software," and then you have to put yourself
Yeah,
together and,
sure.
quiet, or just, no distractions, the background, which background lighting,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
I mean,
Yes.
alternatively, the way I do have created my courses is no camera for the content and a slide deck, right? So it's a
Mhm.
visual
Yeah.
slide deck with just my audio.
Yes, yes,
But
that's another thing.
just about the writing thing, because a lot of especially the Chinese market,
Mhm.
parents are kind of wanting that writing practice, and I could see this as maybe a
Yeah.
way to do that asynchronously, because writing in a 25 or
Yes.
30 or 45-minute class is nearly impossible to really
Yep.
get a lot done.
Mhm.
So this what you're talking about lends itself nicely to that.
Yes, and I
So
have several clients that do writing workshops, and that's exactly how they would do. They would do a prompt, and it's the same way, except you're doing that through Google
yeah,
Docs, and people, whenever they post something, then um, you have notification, you go and correct, and then you go back and forth in the comments. It's amazing.
we've got a lot of comments here. Sky
Sure.
Payne, how does the program work? What are the prompts? You sort of mentioned a bit about that, and he or she, sorry, asked, is it completely asynchronous?
Yes, it is completely asynchronous. I will probably have one consultation at the end. I do know because teachers overdo, and on the first time when you run a program, you will most likely overdo it.
Yeah.
But I do know that over time you will realize that you know
Oh, I think I'm losing you.
Okay. It's
So
better
you're
to
back.
run
Okay.
it yes, it's better to run it asynchronously, because that's what prompts your clients to assume more responsibility. And actually, as far as prompts go and how the program works, again, the Smart Teachers Kit shows you how you can do it in more detail. And so if you sign up, there will be a link. Tim will post a link. And also on my website, if you want to dive deeper into how the program actually works, elenamotonomo.com, and you navigate to courses, I have a workshop called From One to Infinity, and that's where I actually dive deep into here's how it works. So
Yeah, I've got the link down there.
yeah,
It's on the screen there, but it's also linked text wise in the description. So
yeah, thank
yeah,
you.
this is really great. Someone asking who is the teacher. Um, are you a student? Maybe sometimes I get
Yeah.
language learners in here, but no, we're talking about for online teachers ways to scale and ways to maybe offer programs versus
Mm-hmm.
one-to-one teaching. So I know a lot of teachers watching are teaching children.
Mm-hmm.
What if you had a client like that? What would you sort of suggest? I often, support the idea of group classes initially
Mm-hmm.
to kind of take their existing students, offer maybe more specialized niche,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
specific group classes. I've had good success with that and able to charge a lot because of
Mm-hmm.
having 4 or 5 students in the class.
Yeah.
Um, where can somebody start with this? Would they gradually, I would imagine,
Mm.
especially with their existing students?
Yeah, so for me, the first question that I excuse me, ask when I work with teachers that want to teach kids, or like that's all they taught, and so I ask them, is that what you really enjoy doing? That's the first thing. And give yourself permission to
Yeah.
explore something other than, because if by default, if you're going into teaching kids just because you've always taught kids, that's
Yes.
not like a good enough I mean,
Thank you for saying that. I
motivation.
think
Yes.
that's so common. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So you may not, this may not be your thing. And then it will be an adjustment for you to think about yourself other than a kids teacher. But it's something that we do as online teachers, and developing ourselves, right? So that's one thing that we would have to overcome, is that mindset block. Well, I'm only good at working with teachers. Well, why is that? Well, that's because that's all I've taught. Well,
Mhm.
doesn't mean anything. You can still teach different ages. So that's the first thing. Second thing is I ask about content. So what kind of content would you like for the kids to learn? And so for me, because I also work with teachers who want to be creators, I encourage heavily to think about, you know, what is it that you can create for your students,
Mm.
because that immediately gives you an opportunity to get beyond your current clients, um,
Yes.
whom you can teach one-to-one or in group setting, but it gives you a reach. So a podcast, or maybe write stories, that is a good thing. So yeah, I would recommend that. And once you have a product, then you can bring people together into clubs. So it's not no longer just lessons, group lessons. It's a club for people that want to read the book about a specific thing, and then discuss that. So that's how I
Yeah.
go out for when I work with teachers that um, want to work with kids. And I
Yeah.
wanted to, if I can, um, um,
You want to share something?
yes, I wanted to share just this.
Yeah, go ahead. I have to control it, but you can put it you can
Yes,
share it, I believe, and then I can bring it up.
right. So one of my clients, and I was
Mm.
just mentioning her. Her name is Irina, and she. Um, okay, comment. I'm trying to see if I can find where to share. Um, but
There should be a button underneath you that
yeah.
says
there one, the chat.
Okay, do you want me to bring this up?
Yes, if you don't mind. So
Okay,
this
yeah,
is
no
one.
worries. I think you can bring it up as well, but let me just try that here. Okay, so
Oh,
we're gonna.
to share, you mean sharing?
I can do it right now here.
Yeah.
It's called Read Short Adventures.
Yes, it's
Okay, here we go.
smart story. Yes. Let's see.
I have to control it though.
Yeah. So, but I just wanted to, while it's
Yeah.
loading, to let you. So that was one of the teachers that I worked with, who built her entire business around writing books. And now she has programs and clubs for kids that want to read these books. She's very specific. It's for tween girls mainly, but she also has boys. But like they are fascinated by dogs. So all of her stories, as you can see, the books, Nina and Eve, the little dog is Eve, and so everything around it, focuses. And so it's
This is
pretty cool.
amazing.
Yes,
This is
yes.
so cool.
Yes, and
Wow.
she introduced, she teaches as well how to use her materials. A lot of teachers just write to her and say, we would like to use that. So she sends them materials, they buy that from her, and then they use it themselves. But really, you can create, if you feel that creative urge, you can do it yourself, and it's incredible. And she was able to build lots of connections, which opened up doors to a number of groups of students and their parents, and their parents are signing them up. And it's different. It's not
Wow.
for everybody, because some teachers, some parents really want their kids to be following textbooks. So this is definitely not for them, but
Yes.
it's for those who are more willing to let their kids be creative, learn to write. And she does all kinds of things. One week they have to draw a story, or write their own story, or write the beginning of their story, or draw the
Okay.
picture of their dog, and so forth. So anyway.
Neat. It actually just reminded me of someone
Mhm.
else that I know here. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's got very similar, I think, but it's around the idea of mindfulness. So she does
Yeah.
mindfulness programs
Yes.
with kids, and I immediately thought of her when I saw
Mm.
what your client had done. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is really neat, and maybe for many watching or who will watch, it's sort of
Mhm.
planting seeds of possibilities, right? Like what
Mhm.
could be out there. So I just want
Yes.
to again thank you so much
Thank
for
you for giving me this
sharing with
opportunity.
us,
Yes.
and it might be a
Yes.
lot to absorb. Even my wheels are turning a little bit in terms of
Mm. Yeah.
just what you've done, and I think it's really cool and
Mhm.
what is possible for teachers. So thanks for watching, everyone. I see a few people. Hi, Maria, my dear friend in Seattle. Mick says, I only want to teach adults, and they asked me to teach their kids. I now teach about 50-50. Yeah, that happens a lot, actually, is,
Mhm.
they'll
Mhm.
they'll ask you to teach their kids, or you're teaching their kids, and maybe mom or dad
Yes.
needs lessons too. Yes, Sam, there won't be any link. You'll just be able to, about 15 minutes, it'll be
YouTube.
processed on the channel. So yeah, thank you, Instituto Golden Advice. Thank you both. Great. So maybe this is a good point, a good place to stop.
Mhm.
And I've kept you longer than I said I would, so I'm
Yeah, well,
sorry.
thank you. I
But thank
really,
you.
really appreciate it. I just
Yeah,
think the conversation was flowing really nicely. And so I really appreciate
yeah,
everybody's
it's really fun. Yeah,
joining
and again,
today.
the link to get in touch with Elena will be down if you're on Facebook, it'll be there, and also YouTube. Just scroll on down, and at least, if anything, do grab the Smart Teachers Kit. Is that what you call it? The
Yes, yes,
Smart
yes.
Teachers Kit, just to
Mhm.
see what it'll be some of what we talked about, but
And there
some
will
other
be
stuff.
more examples there in the Smart Teachers Kit of teachers that have gone really a different route. And you can see, some of them created even membership sites. So that's
Wow.
that's another
Yeah, that's
conversation for another day. Yes. So that's
yeah.
something you can explore as well.
Very good. Well, thank you again, Elena. Have a
Thank you so
wonderful
much.
day,
Yes,
whatever
you
you're
too.
doing,
Bye,
and we'll be
everyone.
in touch soon. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks again, Elena, and thanks everybody for watching. That was really great. I think as someone that creates most content about companies and one-on-one teaching, I'm always interested in teachers that are doing other things to scale, and hopefully some seeds were planted for you to maybe think outside the box, especially in the area of niching down and being able to charge more, but then maybe introducing this with one student of yours that might benefit from something that's more asynchronous, where it frees up more of your time when you get a system in place. I think, she touched on that you don't want to be creating prompts every day and spending hours. That would defeat the purpose of doing it this way. But it might benefit some of your students more. So anyhow, I will bid you farewell, and I thank you so much for watching the show. Again, I'm Tim, and you can find more information about me if you're new to the channel at onlineteacherdude.com. I have a free course for online teachers to get started in the industry. I have a course going live again soon in possibly October or November, onlineteacherdude.com/launch, which helps you to kind of maybe lay those foundations to teaching independently. And if you ever have any questions, my email inbox is always open. So thanks so much for being here, everyone. Happy teaching, and I will see you next week.